Hello, LVN community. Thank you for joining us again. I hope everyone's doing well. Today we have a very special session on Pride Month. And we have three incredible guests that were kind enough to join us. So I'm going to leave them a second or so to give a brief introduction because we really do want to spend the bulk of the time on this topic. So, Carly, can you start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. I'm Carly Alaria Garcia. I'm the head of diversity, inclusion, and wellness at Paul Hastings, which is a large law firm. I'm also the president of the Association of Law Firm Diversity Professionals. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Thank you. And Greg?
Hi, I'm Greg Lambert. I'm the Chief Knowledge Services Officer at Jackson Walker in Houston, Texas. I'm also the father of a trans son and a member of PFLAG, which is an organization for the parents and friends of the LGBTQ plus community.
Thank you, Greg. And just to show how important this topic is in the community, Ben is on his third day of battling COVID. So he was still kind enough to join us. So, Ben, can you tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm Ben Hayden. I'm the head of legal operations at Cengage Group, which is an educational technology company. I'm also a member of our Pride ERG, and just thrilled to be here with the three of you today.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I guess let's start this one in reverse order from what we just did. Ben, what does Pride Month mean to you, both as an individual and as, just a general member of society? What does Pride Month mean to you?
Well, I think I think for me, and I think for a lot of folks, Pride Month is about visibility. It's about authenticity, and really an opportunity to be unabashedly who you are, to be yourself. Um, I think for me, for this year though, I think I have some I guess mixed emotions for lack of a better word. I think that as I've been thinking about the progress that the LGBTQ plus community has made, over the last few years, things like Obergefell in 2015, I'm reminded that our situation really is so kind of fragile and tenuous for the community, particularly for trans folks, and particularly in this country. And I think the events of the last couple weeks, couple months, particularly for me anyway, the leak of the draft Supreme Court um, opinion on Roe sort of highlighted to me sort of how kind of fragile that progress is or can be, especially if we get complacent. So I think that's sort of my takeaway for Pride Month this year is that complacency is really our enemy here, and I think another thing for me living on the East Coast as I do in sort of a one of the most liberal areas in the country, I think it's easy for me to sort of not realize that I'm sort of living in almost like this little bubble, um, and it's like this little bubble of acceptance. And I think for me personally, it's important to remember and realize that that's not the case for a huge part of the country, and especially for folks that don't live in an area like I do that is as accepting. That sort of making sure we don't get complacent is so important, especially for those folks.
Well, I think that's a great point, Ben, or a bunch of great points, Ben. And I guess maybe something that is not spoken about enough is it can be scary in this environment to see that perhaps rights that you have been denied for years and years and were amazing, right? Like celebrations on the Supreme Court steps. And just a few years later, there can be fear there.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm kind of getting at. I remember growing up, and thinking, well, I guess civil unions is best I'm gonna get, and then, going through college, and I graduated in 2008, and sort of seeing kind of um, the changing winds, as it were, and then to get to that point in 2015 where marriage equality was the law of the land. It was something that I never thought I would see, and I think it just feels like for me like a bit of a maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but a little bit of a roller coaster ride. That sort of acceptance of, well, this is just sort of what I'm going to have to what I'm going to have to live with. This is what my life is going to be like. To that sort of elation and happiness that, like, okay, now I can actually have my relationship recognized in the same way as my parents and the rest of my family. And now to sort of have this, whatever it is, sort of hanging out there, waiting for the other, for potentially for another shoe to drop, is just exhausting. For lack of a better way to put it.
No, I think that's an amazing way to put it. Really, thank you, Ben. Greg, so from, I guess, the parent standpoint, as you said in the opening, can you help us understand and help us know what Pride Month means to you?
Yeah, so I think Pride Month is the ability, and I agree 100% with all the points that Ben hit on, is it gives everyone a chance to step up, evaluate where they are, celebrate the wins, recognize where there's still work to be done, recognize where challenges, even though we may have thought some of those challenges were already over. Sometimes that if you do get complacent, or if there's a change in the political or social winds, how tenuous that those rights are. And again, it's a chance for people not looking for some kind of special treatment; they're looking for equality. And I think it's one of the things that you have these celebrations because there's still work to be done. That although you're celebrating what has happened, there's still work to be done. And as Ben touched on the coast, maybe one thing, but being here in Texas, I think it's been, especially being a family with a trans child, that there are significant targets on the back of the trans community right now, which is really unfair. If anyone has ever, I can almost guarantee that if you've ever met a member of the trans community, they're some of the nicest people you've ever met in your life, and the fact that they're being targeted like this for essentially for political points really makes it frustrating. And it's not new, but I think some of the challenges that you see now are almost this bounty-like system that is going into place, which has such a chilling effect where parents like myself, I'm lucky because my child is an adult, but we have friends who still have minor children who are under medical treatment, under psychological treatment, are presenting their true, authentic selves. And this is the first time I've seen people get up and move out of the state. We've always fought the good fight before, but I'm watching people saying this, the safety of my child takes precedent over everything else, and I'm not going to sit here and, if it was just me, I would fight the good fight, but I'm not going to put my child at risk. And it just shows, just the amount of love that is in that community as a parent. And so the Pride Month itself, it just gives us these 30 days that are ours to take the microphone, to go on and do presentations like this. Put your stake in the sand and go. This is where we're going. We're not turning back. And hopefully, especially if you have law firms or companies that also celebrate Pride, that it's not just the 30 days, that it's every day it's a battle. And if you're going to raise the Pride flag in June, you can't fold it up and pretend it doesn't exist for the next 11 months. So I think parents like us and allies need to make that stance, and Pride Month just gives us an opportunity to take that stance and be very public with it.
No, Greg, I think that's a great point. I mean, it's not just Black History Month. It's not just Mental Health Awareness Month. It's not just Pride Month. I mean, I think those months are meant to make an awareness, but we have to take that awareness and apply it to our daily lives, both in our personal lives, but also in our corporate or law firm lives throughout the year. So I think that's a very great point. Carly, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Since you represent your organization, and not just, I'm not putting you on the spot for just your firm, but I guess other large law firms in general. How important do you feel it is that your organization recognizes and participates in diverse activities like celebrating Pride Month? And can you also educate us on what you've seen as far as the trajectory over the last few years of being better informed and participating more in awareness months, especially Pride Month?
Oh, thanks. And it's Greg actually segued really perfectly because, on one hand, I'm an ally all year long. I carry my flag all year long. My purse has a rainbow on it. But that said, I like to use these months really to educate people. And that's really what we do at the firm. We've been on the fence with, we do these big firm wide programs for Black history and women's history. But then we also make sure, and so we've been on the fence with, do we continue to do those? Because all year long we should be doing things like this. What we've started to use these is really an education campaign. So we've been taking what we've been doing all year long and using these months to really inform and educate people as to what this means and the evolution. So, for example, even at our firm this month, every week we're doing a trivia with 4 facts about Pride Month that people just don't know. What does the flag mean? Why are there 3 flags? Because what I've seen in the 15 years I've been doing this work, not only in law firms, I actually started in corporate America, is on one hand, we've made such great progress. When I first started doing this work, it was LGB. There was no TQ plus. But that doesn't mean that there aren't still things, happening, like the impending Roe v. Wade, like the Pulse nightclub a few years ago. Marriage equality, I think, passed a year before that, but then that happened, which shows you also how much further you have to go. So on one hand, we use these months, not just Pride Month, but all the different months to educate and celebrate. But we also recognize throughout the year that there's still so much more work to be done. So we try to not just use the months for this, but use that as the education piece. Outside of my personal life, I also use it as an opportunity to educate others. So I have my pride flag outside my house, and when guests come over and ask me why, because they don't understand, well, you're not gay. Everybody should be hanging their flags, gay or not, as an ally, because you never, we all know people, and more people can come out if they know there's more allies out there. So that's really what it means to me, what I've seen, and why I, try to do this all year long, despite my job.
Thank you so much, Carly. And actually, the point you just made at the end, we're going to come back to when we close this session with all three of us. But one thing, Greg, I wanted to touch on with you, if you don't mind, is being a parent. Because I know being a parent of an 8-year-old son, sometimes things can be difficult to explain and talk about and things like that. And I know that your child is grown, right? But what advice would you give parents with children that are LGBTQ plus as far as standing up for themselves, as far as being proud of who they are, and not just in Pride Month, but the whole year and their entire lives? Like, how can, I don't know, I'm going to word this wrong, but how can parents be an ally for their own children? What
Yeah, I
advice
think
would you?
I think the biggest thing is to remember that you want your child to be their authentic self. You want them to understand others as their authentic selves, just as they would want to be, and keep an open mind, listen to your child, and should your child come out as LGBTQ. Remember, this is a journey that they're on, that you're riding along with them. It is something that they are doing for themselves. It is not something they are doing to you. And so a lot of times parents really struggle with the fact that not necessarily, they want their child to be safe. They don't want their child to put themselves in a situation that they think may cause them harm or a more difficult life. But at the same time, I think being an ally means standing up and protecting everyone, and if it's especially within your family, that it's that opportunity to step up and promote that being your authentic self. And again, if you're worried about the safety of your child, whenever they come out and talk to you like this and talk about it, one, they're showing that they trust you, and two, the safety begins at home, and especially in the trans community, having the support of a family member, even if it's just one family member, decreases the risk of self-harm that child may do to themselves, because they can't be their authentic self. So, if you're worried about the safety of your child, remember that safety starts at home.
Can I just comment there just about, even
Absolutely.
just starting at home with your own children? And I know this is probably not always popular opinion, but my son went to his first Pride Parade when he was in a stroller still. So it's also teaching allyship regardless. I mean, I didn't know he's 15 now, he's sitting in front of me. At that time, I didn't know what his path was going to be, but I also didn't want him to not feel like, one, if he had friends that were gay, that he couldn't be friends with them, or they, or that he couldn't come out. So that's another thing. I feel like the people that I have to have conversations with who are now grown up and taught to hate at home, it's a self-perpetuating problem. So if we all kind of recognize, it's not people doing it to us, and that's why there's so many more people coming out as trans, because now it's more acceptable, and therefore they need to be accepted so that they, you talked about mental health month. This is all, we deal a lot with that in diversity at the firm, because, someone's mental health could be negatively impacted because of their feeling like they can't come out, or they're just not being, seen. So I wanted to jump in there because I feel like it's not only about having
No,
gay
it's
children,
great.
it's about what you're teaching your children.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate it, Carly. And I think, and just again, to talk about my 8-year-old son, Leo, I mean, I would like to think that as a society, we're on a better path, because oftentimes with things like racism and, bigotry and things like that, if he hears about it, he asks me, Dad, why are they like that? Right? It's not, Dad, what's the problem? Why are they like that? And I, explain as best I can, but I would like to think that as a society we're on a better path. But Ben, kind of to that point, can you help, but perhaps folks that are non-LGBTQ plus, like folks like Carly, who has obviously done an amazing job in her personal life and with her son. What can folks do to show their support, but not, for lack of better terms, go overboard to the point where it's almost offensive, and you're like, all right, I acknowledge it, thank you, but right. What can folks do? How can they help folks in the LGBTQ plus community feel accepted, feel loved, and understand that they've got a safe spot, somebody that's okay to talk to if they have concerns or problems?
I think it's a really simple answer, but I think it's, to me, the biggest one is just be open to be a good listener, right, and ask. I think that is such a huge part in the creation of a safe space where if you approach someone to say like, hey, I'd like to understand your story. What's your perspective on this? Where are you coming from? I think that really sort of sets the groundwork for enabling that person to feel comfortable in talking about themselves and their own experiences. So I really think paramount to everything is really just asking and then listening.
Thank you so much, Ben. Well, hey, I know that our video editors are going to be upset with us already, but I think this is such an important topic, and thank you all so much for being willing to spend time with us. So, Carly, Greg, Ben, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking with all of you again in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.